wasn't chasing money or recognition. He was just driven by belief. And when leadership failed to empower him, he just created his own environment where his innovation could thrive. Hey, I'm Dimitri, Stathoulis, counselor, coach, speaker, and leadership specialist. And for the past few years, I've had the privilege to help organizations, schools, clients, and leadership teams across South Africa transform confusion into clarity, drama into systems, and talk into measurable cultural change. In this video, I want to share with you one of the most powerful frameworks that I've used to shift culture effectively, something I call the Initiators Circle. Let's get into it. Now, here's the problem. When leaders try to shift or change their culture, they often don't know where to start. So they tend to just aim to do a lot of change in the biggest areas of the company. So if we had to picture a bell curve, Simon Sinek spoke about this in his video on how to make a cultural transformation. And on this bell curve, we have 5 sections. In the first section, we have the innovators, then the early adopters, followed by the early majority, and the last 2 being the late majority and the laggards. This is called the law of diffusion of innovation, which is a theory that describes how new ideas, products, or even technologies spread through a population over time rather than all at once. And when we look at this bell curve, we can see the big hump in the middle, and that is where most leaders try to change their culture. They put all their focus and energy on the average group. And it makes sense. In your head, you think, if I can just change the majority, I can change the entire culture. But unfortunately and statistically, this middle group, which is the standard deviation, is the hardest to move. They tend to wait to see what everyone else will do before they decide to commit. And so most cultural initiatives die within the first few weeks of even trying. They fade out, not because the vision was wrong, but because the focus was misplaced. The real key to cultural change lies in the first 18 to 20% of the people. These are your innovators and your early adopters, the ones who tend to see potential before it's even proven. They're the ones who believe in the leader's dream, who get excited about new ideas, and who have the influence to move others. But here's the problem. They're often overlooked or underutilized. These are what I call your Initiators Circle, the people who can take any dream and turn it into a reality. If you empower them to, that is a possibility, right? And the scary thing is, in every company and organization I've worked in, there are always these innovators and early adopters just sitting there, not even being effective. Rather, they just sit there fulfilling a role. Or even worse, so often these people have tried to be effective, but are just shut down from the leadership because, oh, we don't have the money or we don't have the time, not knowing these people would pay their own money and work overtime to push their dreams to see the company succeed. A great example of this is Steve Wozniak from Apple. Steve worked at Hewlett and Packard, which is now HP, in the 1970s, when he designed the prototype for what eventually became the Apple I computer. He pitched the idea internally at HP multiple times, but was constantly rejected. They told him HP wasn't in the personal computer business. So Wozniak and his friend Steve Jobs took the idea and started what is now Apple. And it all started in a garage, and it changed the world. Steve was part of this Initiators Circle, an early adopter and innovator whose leadership at HP didn't see the vision. He wasn't chasing money or recognition. He was just driven by belief. And when leadership failed to empower him, he just created his own environment where his innovation could thrive. You also had people like Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, the founders of Airbnb, who came up with the idea of renting out air mattresses in their apartments to make extra money. But multiple investors and companies dismissed it. They were told it wasn't scalable, it wasn't safe, or even a serious idea. But they persisted and built Airbnb into a global phenomenon and a global hospitality group that we know now today. So all I'm saying is there are people right now in your company just waiting to be let loose and be effective. I want you to think of this Initiator Circle as the spark that ignites cultural momentum. They represent the first 20% of your organization, a group that naturally uses change. They influence the next 60%, right? This is the power of the Initiator Circle in action. You only need a small percentage of people to believe deeply about what you're trying to achieve before they begin to follow. If you can win the hearts of this 20%, the initiator circle, you can shift the entire beliefs and behaviors of the remaining 80%. That's how real culture changes. Not top down, but inside out. So before you build your initiator circle, you first need to train your leadership, the owners, the executives, and the department heads to actually understand what culture really is. When I teach culture, I break it down into these 3 pillars: behavior, symbols, and systems. Behavior is different from the other 2 in the sense that symbols and systems are unique to the entity or company, but the behavior is fixed or consistent in all successful cultures that we look at. You can replicate the behavior of successful companies, but if your symbols and systems don't align, your whole thing falls apart. So often leaders try to change the behavior of their staff and then wonder why in 2 weeks everything is back to normal. Here's the key: behavior is fixed, consistent in every successful culture. Symbols and systems are unique. They reflect your organization's DNA. That's why you can't just copy another company's culture. You have to design your own through alignment between these 3. Dan Model said it best, right? Culture isn't what's written on the wall. It's what your people do when no one's watching. When we talk about culture, we have to talk mainly about the leadership because, as John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership. And there's a powerful story in Extreme Ownership about 2 Navy SEALs teams. One had the best equipment, but poor leadership. The other had average skills, but great leadership. When they swapped leaders, the performance flipped instantly. The team with the poor leadership lost every single time. Culture follows the leader. If you're unhappy with your team's performance, you don't start by fixing your people. You start by fixing your leadership. Because culture is a reflection of what leadership consistently reinforces. Once your leadership understands culture and diffusion, it's time to identify and activate those early adopters, your initiators. Here's how you do it. You need to, 1, invite the entire staff to apply for an exclusive limited workshop called the Initiators Circle, let's call it. But there needs to be a barrier to entry, a short essay or form where people answer a question: why do you believe you should be part of this workshop? This 1 step separates interest from initiative. And we need to review those applications carefully afterwards because we need to choose people who align with the vision and values and energy we try to create, because there will be those that will feel they have to go, or those who are only going because they want to impress the boss. We don't want those in the group. After that, you need to host your first event, what we're going to call Day 0. Day 0 should feel special, a well-presented space with energy, food, and atmosphere, and each person receives something unique, a personal pack with the day's contents or something. The company's vision and dreams are shared clearly at this event. The concept of culture, which is behavior, symbols, and systems, is explained in this meeting. You introduce the Initiator Circle and their role in shaping the future, and then you have to end the session with a sign-up opportunity. Let those who are ready to commit publicly to being ambassadors of the company's culture come forward. Culture isn't built in a day. It's built in a rhythm. After Day 0, you provide ongoing training, mentorship to your Initiator Circle throughout the year. And here's the plan. Through that training, you provide 10 masterclasses delivered over time, 5 from yourself or leadership partners, and 5 from internal experts. Those are focused on growth, communication, and influence. The goal isn't just to train, it's to equip this 20% to live out the culture daily that you want your company to represent. Their consistency becomes your momentum, because the more the people model the behavior, the faster the rest of the organization begins to follow. So let's recap. Culture doesn't change by focusing on everyone. It changes by focusing on the right ones. This Initiator Circle, which is that first 20% of the bell curve, are the spark that creates the fire. They don't wait for permission. They respond to vision. If you invest in them, train them, trust them, and walk beside them, they will move that entire middle. And it's important to remember culture isn't built by one speech or one leader. It's built by a community that believes together, acts together, and repeats those actions until belief becomes behavior. Leadership isn't about control. It's about clarity, consistency, and courage. We are not here to manage people. We lead people and manage tasks. I'm Dimitri Stathoulis, and this is a practical psychology for leaders who build. To learn more about how to start your own Initiators Circle, check out the website www.onlinecounsellor.co.za, or you can download the template of how to run your own Initiators Circle in your own company in the description below. See you in the next video.